Hello and welcome to Crescent Podcast. I'm your host, Lucy Jesse, and I run Crescent Digital Marketing, where I provide digital marketing services for neurodivergent-led businesses. A quick shout out to our brilliant sponsor, Purple Frog Signs. Please go and check them out for any of your signage needs. Their website is purplefrogsigns.com. You can also find them on Instagram and LinkedIn, so go and give them a follow. Today I'm joined by the fabulous Joyce from CoomberSewell, which is a training CIC helping clients with presentation skills, interview skills, mentoring, proofreading, bid writing, as well as training in autism. Welcome to the podcast, Joyce. How are you?
I'm really good. Thank you for inviting me to come and join you today. That's brilliant.
No, it's lovely to have you here. So why don't we start at the beginning? Can you tell us a bit about your background and what led you to ultimately set up the CIC?
It is a bit of a journey. At the age of 4, I didn't think I knew that I was an alien dropped from another planet. I knew by then I didn't quite fit in. By the age of 6, I was the only child who didn't have a reading book in my class. And so I made that mean that I was thick and stupid. And as you know, when we make meanings, we then try and collect history to prove that that meaning is a truth, which of course it's not, it's all made up. But so I left school at 15, no qualifications. I had a lovely job. I loved the job I had in the laboratories at Ladybirds, who used to make children's clothes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I loved it. It was fantastic. I love laboratory work. But I was a hippie. And what do hippies believe in? Free love. So at the tender age of 16, I came home pregnant. So I now have 3 daughters. Sadly, one of them passed away just over a year ago with brain cancer, and one lives in America. But the time, so in my 40s, I went to college to take some GCSEs, and a nice guy, student support, called in an educational psychologist who diagnosed me with a slightly higher than average IQ, but severely dyslexic. Did that make any difference to I'm thick and stupid? Absolutely not. But what it did do, so at the time where I worked, I got some instructions from a senior and I carried them out to the word literally. And the final outcome was I got sacked because what he said and what he meant were 2 different things. So since then, the last 30 years, I've run 3 very successful companies. I used to have a company called Your Connection, and it was to do with telecoms and billing platforms. Back in the day, you could only divert your phone calls to a different provider. There was none of what we can do now. And so I had that for about 9 years, staff, PA, sold that. And that's when I met my wife. So as you can imagine, I was married to a man because I've got 3 daughters, and even I'm not that clever. And now I'm married to a woman. I have a slightly more sympathy for the men now. So I met my wife, and it wasn't an instant attraction. In fact, what happened first, for the first 6 months, it was just a friendship that got deeper and developed. And we've known each other 16 years, and this August will be our 15th wedding anniversary. So we've been together a long time. I know. I'll get her trained eventually. So the first thing we did was we work with disabled university students. Most of them are on spectrum, but not all. So my wife teaches study skills, and I'm a mentor. Now, a mentor means that I'm granny. So I'll give you an example. A student I was with this morning, I'd set him a task to try and get him to see that he's not a child anymore. He's an adult. So things like sorting out his clothes, sorting out all the things on the shelves. We had a very interesting conversation about how some of the things on the shelf he'd get rid of because he's not interested in them anymore. But there's 1 or 2 that are memories. And what is the difference between a memory and hoarding? So that was really interesting. Nice young man. I've even managed to get him to make his mum and dad cups of tea now. And he's on the spectrum. He's a really nice guy. So that's how we started. So my wife is a word nerd. So
Love that.
yeah, oh, she really is. Really is. So there's an organisation called Mensa where your IQ has to be in the top 2% of the world to be allowed to be a member. Hers is in the top 1% of the world. Therefore, she's with Einstein, Stephen Hawkins, people like that. No common sense. She's got very good cooking skills. Other than that, not practical hair in her head, I tell you. So I'm her carer. I look after her. And as I said, my 3 daughters, they gave me 11 grandchildren.
Gosh.
And 2 great-grandchildren, hence the grey hair. So my grandchildren, the 11 grandchildren, 6 of those are diagnosed with autism. And at that point, I decided it resonated with me, but I was going to get diagnosed as well so that they couldn't use it as an excuse not to be successful in whatever they decided to do. Sounds easy? No, it's not. So I was 58 when I started the process, and there's 3 questionnaires that they're like you to fill in. One you fill in, one who knows you really well, so my wife, and one by somebody who knew you between the ages of 2 and 12. Parents are deceased, never stayed in contact with school friends or teachers, so I couldn't get it done. And then you get 2 appointments. The first one, they diagnosed me with ADHD and dyspraxia. And then the next thing you wait, and then you get an appointment with a psychologist. Now, this lovely young man came and got me from the waiting room, walked along a nice glass corridor to his office. And he said to me, "What was the first thing you thought when you met me this morning?" Now, you know, I might be autistic, even dyslexic, but I'm not really stupid. And I'm going, what I should say is, "Oh, he looks really nice. Hope this goes well." You know, all those sort of positive things. And I thought, nope, I'm here for a diagnosis. So I'm actually going to tell the truth of what I really thought. And so I said to him, "Why didn't you iron your shirt this morning?" He's like, what? I mean, he was young, and I'm a mum, you know, that's what we see and think.
Yeah.
Anyway, at the end, he said, "I'm 98% certain you're autistic, can't give you the diagnosis because you didn't get that 3rd questionnaire." I know. Now, for people who know me well, I'm just a little bit stubborn. Went back to my GP, got re-referred, still needed to do these 3 questionnaires. Still, as brilliant as I am, couldn't raise my parents from the dead, couldn't do the 3rd one. So this time, the first appointment, they wanted me to tell stories from cartoon pictures, put the right shape bricks on the right shape patterns on. Did that. And then I was seen 3 months later by a female psychologist. Now, I only know this because at the right old age of 71, I'm in my final year of my PhD. So what I know is that there's a thing called DSM-5, which is like, in that is all about mental health and autism and all that stuff. In the last century, at the beginning of the last century, we had DSM-4. And the word autism, around about 1920, 30s when we got that word, and it was put in DSM-4. But over that century, we got a lot of other things, ADHD, PDD, OS. There's millions of them.
Yeah, so many of them.
Too many, really, Lucy. So at the end of the century, it was decided to take the whole lot out and do the autistic spectrum. So you've got to think of the spectrum like an umbrella. And all these different spokes within the umbrella are still there, but it's the autistic spectrum. So this beautiful woman decided to diagnose me incorrectly. She diagnosed me from DSM-4. So PDD, NOS, pervasive developmental disorder,
Okay.
not otherwise stated. Now, NOS is because I couldn't get that third questionnaire filled in. And because of my studies, I know that that questionnaire was created purely for parents to fill in about their small children, school children, not meant for old people. PDD no longer exists. My GP was furious, so he changed it, autistic spectrum. So what happens, Lucy, is that the people doing the diagnosing aren't keeping up to date with how things have changed. And most of them don't actually know very much about autism. It's a tick box.
Right.
And if you can tick enough boxes, they'll give you a diagnosis. It might not be the correct diagnosis, but they'll give you a diagnosis. So that's kind of my journey to where I am today.
So how does the CIC work? How do you work with people? Obviously, you just explained about the client you're working with this morning. What does a typical day, if there is one, look like to you?
Okay, so I'm also a public speaker, so I do a lot of public speaking. So if anybody's watching this and they're looking for a public speaker, please, I'm available some of the time. So for the last 2 years, I've really concentrated just on autism. So that might be working with parents. So I had a lady, had a little boy, 7. This is something else that kind of infuriates me, is when anybody gets diagnosed with autism, they get multiple pages document that tells them, what tests were done, what the scores were, and in the conclusion, the diagnosis. What it doesn't tell you is why you behave or think or feel in certain ways that may be different to the non-autistic. So this woman was telling me her 7-year-old little boy had just been diagnosed, does this funny tippy toe thing around the house when he's happy. But when he's angry and anxious or upset, he stomps. Now, this is called stimming. If you're not an autistic, it's called a repetitive habit. And all human beings, no matter what part of the world you live in, everybody has repetitive habits. Women often play with their hair, men play with their ears, and they do this funny thing with their thumbs. It's just a repetitive habit. But because us autistics are so special, we have our own word, which is stimming. Okay. Now, I stim. Different people. So if you talk to a lot of the people in the street and you explain what stimming is, they'll talk about rocking and flapping. And some autistic people do. Mine is a little bit different. So I'm going to show you. I wish I'd brought a clean one, actually. It's not very clean, but never mind. It's cotton wool. So
Okay.
it starts off as a cotton wool ball.
Yeah.
And I play with it until it goes into a long, and now I'm lucky because I can put this in the left-hand pocket because I'm a right-handed person. So in the left-handed pocket, that was out of my cardigan. I hope I got a better one out of my trousers. Oh yeah, this is a little bit cleaner. Out of my trouser pocket. And my mum told me that when I was a little girl, she would be forever finding cotton wool underneath my pillow. I am very out and proud now, so I tell everybody. But the nice thing about it being in your pocket is you can stand there with your hand in your pocket, nobody knows. But other people have different stims or repetitive habits. And it was like mind-blowing for this mum. After getting all this documentation, now she knew why her little boy did what he did. Or it could be, I work with businesses. So a particular business I was working with, it was just before COVID. This young girl, she used to write presentations, and then another member of staff would go on stage and do the presentations. And then we got hit by COVID. So the company said, oh, well, you write them, you can do the presentations on Zoom. And there could be sort of 70, 75 people. And she would do it, and she would do it very well until she went home. And then she would completely break down, cry, really upset because of the stress it was causing her. And so in the end, she went to personnel and told them, and their attitude really was to get rid of her. So thankfully I got called in, and I said, well, if she's that good at writing all this stuff, let her carry on writing it all. But the woman who used to go on stage, let her do the presentations. Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we could do that. And I said, but she's in this great big office. Can she move to another office on her own? And if that's not possible, can she move to a corner? And can she wear noise cancelling headset? Is that it? Is that all we got to do? Yeah. Doesn't cost you any money. All you're doing is doing what you did before COVID with the presentations. She can get her own noise cancelling headphones and just shove her in the corner. And to the best of my knowledge, she still works there. But it's not just autism, you know. People think that making changes to accommodate people is expensive. Now, another lady, she'd done her degree. She started applying for jobs and she did very well. And people wanted to employ her. But the reason they couldn't was because she was in a wheelchair and their office wasn't accessible. And she told me she was on her 20th interview and they said, we'd really, really like to have you come and work for us, but our office isn't accessible. And she was kind of like, kind of knew that was going to happen. And they go, no, just wait. We don't have a lift. Your office is going to be on the 3rd floor. So what we're going to do over the weekend, we're going to move the 3rd floor office to the ground floor, the ground floor for the office to the 3rd floor, and you'll start on Monday. Again, didn't cost them anything. A little bit inconvenient moving everybody, but everybody was kind of engaged and it worked.
It's not rocket science, is it, to try and make some adjustments like that? But I suppose it's just pointing them out, even if they seem glaringly obvious.
Yeah, business people just think that it's going to be expensive, and it's not. And in majority of cases, it's really, really easy to solve. So that's how it kind of has progressed. But, because there's always a but in there, Lucy. So last year, I was invited to sit on a panel at London South Bank University. And the vice chair, lovely, lovely lady, had quite a bad stutter. Didn't bother her. And the university encouraged neurodiverse people to come. Before we went up front to start the panel, I was sitting with my wife. And the vice chair, we get to Q&A. And I'm not very good at being quiet. And I said to her, as my wife's IQ is higher than 99% of the rest of the world, is she not neurodiverse? Now, my poor wife, I'd never said it to her before, and I hadn't pre-warned her, so she wasn't very happy with me. But now she kind of gets it, because actually she's more neurodiverse than I am, because there's only 30% of people in the world that are on the autistic spectrum. So that got my brain ticking. And then I thought, my wife's an identical twin. They're nothing alike.
Oh, interesting.
Her identical twin sister does not have her high IQ. My wife and I dressed like any other women. We don't wear skirts and dresses, but we're quite feminine in our. Her twin sister, who is also married to a woman, they wear men's clothes, and all the rest of it. They're very, very different personalities, different type of people. Her sister's lovely. She's an occupational therapist, but different. And I thought, do you know what? I'm not sure there's any such thing as identical people. I've heard of conjoined twins, but their personalities are different. And you just think, so I'm going to redesign my company to encompass not neurodiversity, because I actually don't like the word, to human diversity.
Okay.
because no two humans are alike. So it's in the process. The website's got to be built, and there's all this weird stuff they do, back
All gets a bit
pages.
technical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is my current website is very wordy, lots and lots of words. So getting rid of all of that. I've done a video, which will be an introduction, and I point to a knowledge center button. People go there. And then I'm asking lots of people to do webinars for me. Now, Lucy, I know I'm a bit of a character. Oh,
A lovable character.
to some. So I was at a conference last year. We're members of Entrepreneurs Circle. We were at their conference, and there was a lovely lady there, Stephanie Sword Williams, and she's written a book. It's called Fuck Being Humble, right?
Okay.
It is aimed at women, but men as well. And it's all about us women over the generation, especially when you're older. We've been brought up, don't raise your head above the parapet. You might want to do that, but don't do it, okay, because you're just a woman. So she talks about putting your big girl knickers on. I put on my big girl bloomers. So they come from my knees to up to here. Right? And it takes a lot of courage. So the owner of Entrepreneurs Circle left school at 16, so he wasn't highly qualified, got a job in a bank. He now owns 10 multi-million pound companies. His name's Nigel Bottrell. Love the man. He's agreed to do a webinar.
Amazing.
There's a guy who, his name's Dan Harris. He started a company, he's the CEO and whatever it is, founder of Neurodiversity in Business. And he's got a autistic non-speaking son who we all call the Joshy man. You can find him on LinkedIn, and he's going to do one. There's Isaac Harvey, MBE, a man in a wheelchair, no arms or legs. Fantastic guy, runs his own company, does loads of charity work and mad stuff. You know, he'll climb a mountain and, you know, yeah, he does all this weird stuff. He's already done his. Oh, and that was lovely. So he done his, and I said, "Oh, Isaac, would you mind if your mum? Can I ask your mum to do one?" Now, I rang his mum. She's in her mid-80s, and she's going to do one because she had fostered 8 severely physically disabled kids, and she's going to tell a story. I've got a guy. He's going to talk. Oh, I feel for this guy, I really do. If you've got daughters. He's got a autistic daughter who's just hit puberty, and he's going to talk about the experience of being a dad. I just got some paperwork back from a stammering company. I said, "Would you do a video, webinar for me?" They went, "I do too." I said, "They're going to do too." I've got people now coming to me volunteering, but it's because of this lady and her book, and putting my big girl bloomers on and going to the big people, because if the big people do it, then people will come and watch it, and then hopefully they'll learn something. And it could be that it's an individual like that mum with her 7-year-old son, could be like something like that, but it could be a company. They can buy licenses. So maybe I've got a taxi company, a local taxi company. I know the owner very well. She's a lovely Maria. I love Maria. And we're going to do one as if we're in a classroom, and I'm teaching the taxi drivers who take disabled children into school. And about, I know you're going to find this bizarre, not this company at all, but another company up north. I was talking to this guy who owns a taxi company, and I said, "How do you stop the children getting out the seatbelts?" And he said, "Well, you can't. They'll undo the seatbelts." And I went, "You do know you can get a gadget to put over so they can't undo it?" "No." "If one of your children undid the seatbelt, I take it you have a screen so they can't get, the steering wheel can't hit you?" "No." And I was like, "Really?" So and do you know, a lot of taxi drivers and the escorts have no training in SEN at all.
Yeah, that
None.
doesn't surprise me actually.
So this company down here, which are a good company, otherwise I wouldn't have chosen them. I'm going to pretend to be teaching these drivers. Yeah, really, they know it all, but I'm going to, so that other taxi companies can learn what they should be putting in
Yeah.
place.
We had that with my youngest. He was so strong. I mean, he's coming up for 7 in a few weeks, but he was so strong when he was 2 or 3. He could climb out of the car seats, the harnesses. We got the clips. We did everything. We're at the point of thinking of resorting to duct tape just to tape him into the chair. But in the end, one of us, like me or my husband, would have to be sat in the back of the car with him just to kind of keep him in. Because as soon as he was out, he was climbing all over the car, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's horrific and frightening. So yeah, I think it's definitely something that the taxi drivers and that should definitely be aware of.
But you think it would be the law? You think before a driver could drive these children, there would be things they had to, but no, no.
Yes.
And it's like people tend to think that us autistics are not very bright, that we have severe learning difficulties. Back in my day, they weren't called autistic, and I'm not allowed to say what we called them. It was allowed then, it isn't allowed now. But majority of autistic people have normal to higher IQs and do very, very well.
See, the people I meet are the other extreme of thinking, and they think that all autistics are highly intelligent or have a savant ability. And I have no savant ability. I'm fairly intelligent. I went to uni, I got a degree. I'm capable in everyday life to an extent, but not especially bright or intelligent or gifted or anything like that. So it seems to be one extreme or the other.
I know. But do you know that actually is exactly the same with the Down syndrome community? Because this podcast is going to, I know, be listened to millions of people.
Thank
Please,
you for your patience.
please, please don't ever say, well, everybody's a little bit autistic, right? Because
Yeah.
if you want to wind us up, it's a good thing to say. So what I have an answer, because I'm who I am. If you go to the National Autistic Society, they have a checklist. And yes, everybody can tick 3-4 boxes. But to be autistic, you've got to tick loads of the boxes, okay? But you say to somebody about, oh, you can tick 3 or 4 boxes, they go, oh, see, everybody's a little bit autistic. And I go, okay, now go to the Down syndrome website. How many boxes can you tick? Does that make you Downs as well? Oh, they get really upset with me then. But it's true. It's like, we're normal people. Or as I say, when I meet autistic people and they're feeling a bit, I go, oh no, you're on the A team. We are superior.
I like to think of it that everyone is just wired differently, different operating system, iPhone, Androids, that's what I always come back to. And you can have traits, but it's like you said, essentially it's ticking boxes. And if you don't tick enough boxes, and if everyone was a little bit autistic, life wouldn't be so hard for people who are genuinely autistic.
Yeah, well, that's kind of my motivation with the human diversity is I want everybody to see that everybody's a little bit different. No two people are the same. It's like I want society to stop abusing those that are different because we're all different. I mean, I have this physical and verbal dyspraxia. Okay, so do you like that?
Oh dear.
Yeah, but it's normal. My mum used to always saying about me falling over when I was little. And I still fall over. I've been in so many ambulances, it's not real. But, what happened? So I think in pictures. I don't think in words. That's my wife. She's a word nerd. I think in pictures. So you've got a brain and there's all these little neurons sticking out of the brain. All right. Remember, this is picture, not reality. And these are wired all around, and that wire goes all through your body. And the brain sends messages to the neurons that send messages down the wire to say, move this way, do that, scratch your head. So I've got a breakfast bar. I know the breakfast bar is there, but those signals are minutely out of sync. And instead of walking round the breakfast bar, I walk into it. Okay. And it's the same with the verbal, because the neurons have to send the signals to the voice box. I didn't know I had verbal dyspraxia until I got into academia.
I
The
didn't know it was a
words
thing
are
until very
weird.
recently. It might have been you actually that even told me about it, and I always assumed it was just a physical. I didn't realise it could be verbal as well.
My youngest daughter, when she was a child, couldn't say the word squirrel. So in my family, to this day, all squirrels are scribbles, because she just couldn't say it, because she had dyspraxia too.
Yeah.
And, and because you never stop learning. Okay, so as I said earlier on, I've got autism and ADHD. So ADHD means that you run at around 100 miles an hour. Autism is slower. So I can have autism days and I can have ADHD days.
Yes.
The problem is if they clash. So that can be quite an interesting day if they clash. If I have an ADHD day, you'd think, oh, well, I turn the computer off at 5 o'clock, have my dinner and go to bed. That's the day over. No, this thing in here goes, ADHD, and I'll be up half the night thinking and having wild ideas and all the rest of it. So, there's still a lot to learn. I love the subject. And as I get more into human diversity, I finish my PhD next year, which I shan't be sorry for. And unlike my wife, I'll never do another one. My wife's actually just started her second PhD.
Goodness.
I know, she's a nut job. And she's learning to speak Maltese.
Of course.
Of course. We have 2 rescued teenage kittens. My one's called Merlin, but her one is called Atos. And Atos is Maltese for cat. So we have a cat called Cat, which is nothing, because we also have my grandson. He's 27 years old and he's also autistic, who lives through the back door. He has a cat. Used to be our cat. We had that cat for 4 years. She named it Woof. So we've got Woof, Cat, and Merlin.
Amazing. That's brilliant. I love that so much.
So as you can imagine, it's a bit of a crazy household.
What are your thoughts when people use the term superpower with neurodiversity?
Okay, my wife doesn't come under the banner. I've put her under the banner of neurodiversity, but her superpower is words. She writes books, she does proofreading, she does copywriting. She's a total nut job, right?
Said with love.
Because I'm dyslexic, I've got a train mate. I can say a word out loud and she spells it for me. I don't even have to ask her anymore. I see this neurodiverse thing, which is better than what we used to be called. I mean, back in the 1920s, 30s, we had really bad names. But we're not, everybody's neurodiverse, because no 2 people are the same. We all think different. Our brains all operate different. Some people can sit at a computer all day. Some people can be accountants. My husband was an accountant. He could mentally add numbers quicker than I could put them into and add them up, right? Because that's how his brain worked. My wife, she can read at the speed of lightning. I can't. But they don't come under the banner as neurodiverse, but they are. And then you have other people who, I've got 4 young men in the back of my garden taking a tree down. What difference does it make? And we've got wonderful people being carers. If we all live to our strengths, but stop putting down other people, so that accountant shouldn't look down on that carer. These men who are cutting down this dirty great big tree in my back garden and rescuing baby squirrels, they shouldn't look up They shouldn't look up to the people who are professors. I mean, most professors are on the spectrum. They really are. How do I know? Because my wife works with them.
I think I struggle a bit with the term superpower, because whilst you can have like a gift or be really good at something,
Absolutely.
having that statement of like that your autism or your ADHD is a superpower, I struggle with, because it kind of minimizes the struggle that I know I go through day to day. So I'm torn, very torn when it comes to when people say that.
But again, we use it out of context. So my wife's superpower is words.
Mm.
My superpower is I'm very practical, because otherwise we'd live in a tip. You know,
With the baby squirrel.
it's not a superpower. It's just something you're particularly good
Mm.
on. The people savants. I mean, there was, I saw this chap and he was playing the piano. He doesn't need any music. He could listen to a piece of music once and play it on the piano completely 100%. But he had to have 24/7 carers because he couldn't take care of himself. And you remember years ago, a lady singer, Susan Boyle?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, you know, quite autistic, and everybody was gobsmacked. That
Yeah.
voice,
Yes.
was that a superpower? No, she just was blessed with a really beautiful voice, and she obviously enjoyed singing and had gone down that route. We my grandchildren a couple of years ago bought us tickets to Swan Lake. Okay, ballet. I like ballet. Only they didn't read what they were buying me, and it was Swan Lake by male ballet dancers.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Oh my God, it was phenomenal. Best thing I've ever seen.
Wow.
Really, really good. They were really good. Is that a superpower? Because they could dance like women? They could just dance like women because that's what they wanted to do, and they were good at it, and they learned how to do it. I think everybody has something they're good at, whatever that is. Whether that's keeping the house clean, baking a cake. I baked these guys chocolate chip cake today in our wood burner. It was lovely, but a bit crusty around the edges. But it was nice, and they enjoyed it. So that was good. And my wife is very good with an axe and saws and things like that, because we've got a wood burner. It's our only form of heating. And she would live out there. She loves doing that. And in fact, she's with a student now. She finishes around about 3:00, and she's going, I'm going out and I'm going to cut some more wood. I'm like, really? Okay, fine. That's what she likes doing.
We met networking. How do you find that side of running the business, going out there?
I love networking. Years and years ago, I used to run quite a well-known networking group. I run the whole of Southeast Kent for 5 years and really enjoyed it. The thing with me is, I know you're going to find this hard to believe, Lucy, I actually don't like being in crowds of people. So if I was to go on my own to a wedding, a family occasion, or I would never go to a nightclub, but anything like that, I would stand in the corner because I wouldn't know what to do or what to say and who to speak to. And I know in theory, find the other person that's like you, who's standing looking, don't know what to do. No, I can't do it. My wife comes to everything. We go to a lot of training courses. And one day we're at a training course. I knew some of the people there, very well organised. But she said, I'm going to have to go out to the motorhome. I've got to do this piece of work. I was totally freaked out. Couldn't cope. Couldn't handle it. Dreadful. And I've had to make her promise in blood that she'll never leave me again. Right? But give me something to do. If I've got a position, I'm absolutely fine. So that could be in the kitchen, serving the tea and coffee, or doing the washing up. I had a grandson, nearly 9.5 years ago now, that was murdered. And yeah, I know. The guy's in prison, and he'll stay there for a very long time, thankfully. But at the funeral, after the funeral was a wake, I had a role to play. I was Granny. So my role make sure everybody was okay, make sure everybody had a sandwich and a cup of tea. It was absolutely fine. But I can't go on my own if I don't have a position.
Yes.
So the networking that I go to, it's so well organized. And that really works for me. So the group I run for 5 years, I started off just going along as a member. Within a couple of meetings, I was on the welcome group. Then I was taking the money. Then I was running the group. And within a very short time, I was running 8 groups across Southeast Kent. If I've got a position, I'm absolutely fine. If I haven't got a position, look for me in a corner somewhere, because that's where I'll be.
Yeah, I can relate to that a lot. Although I think I'm definitely better networking now than I was a couple of years ago.
The other thing Lucy, is, as I said, I'm a public speaker, and I do anything from small groups. I went to one the other week. I thought it was like going to be 25 people. It was 8. It's probably the smallest one I've ever done, but they paid me just the same, so it's okay. But, sometimes it can be 50 plus, whatever. And I'm looking to get... So there's a big 2-day exhibition in Birmingham called neurodivergence, which is all about disabilities. And this is my 3rd year of going. It's like going home. I don't need Jane with me. She stays in the motorhome doing uni work and writing books and weird stuff. And I wanted to be a speaker. And this year, I'm on the main stage. But I always have to say to the person who's leading, 5 minutes before you want me to stop, you need to tell me to stop or indicate in some way that I need to wind down. Because as you probably realise, Lucy, I can talk for...
If you could go back in time, what advice do you think you would give your younger self about life or work or family or whatever? What do you think you'd say?
Okay, bit controversial. Don't have children. Or certainly don't have children at 16. You see, it's different back then. As I said, I didn't get diagnosed with anything until I was 40. That was just the dyslexia. The rest was at 58 and the autism was at 63. If I could go back in time, knowing then what I know now, then I would not have had children. I would have gone to university. I had this wonderful job in the laboratories, and they said, you would be a good candidate for university. I was going to be taught how to be a colourist, and I really wanted to go. But I had a child, and back then, if you had children, your life stopped.
Yes.
I mean, I know it's different now, but that's how it was. And I now think, why didn't I go to uni? I did my bachelor's degree. I started at 60. I did my master's at 64, and you can find that on Google Scholar. And I tracked the timeline of autism from the 19th century to the present day. And now I'm doing my PhD, and I'm looking at why it's so difficult for older women to be diagnosed. So, if I was to go back in time, university when I was young. And that's not to say everybody should go to university, because I really, really don't think that.
No, this is personal to you. It's just interesting to see people's perspectives.
Yeah, chase your passion. Whatever it is, whether that's to be a motor mechanic or a seamstress, I don't care what it is, do it. Don't put it off. Don't wait. Don't think you're less than. Don't think you can't. Put your big girl bloomers on.
Thank you so much for coming on, Joyce. It's lovely to talk to you, as always.
Thank you, Lucy. I love talking to you.
Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. If you want to get in touch, if you've got any questions, you can send me an email at lucy@crescentdigitalmarketing.co.uk. I would love to hear from you. Please give this a follow wherever you're consuming this episode. Share it with anyone you think might enjoy it. And a big thank you again to Purple Frog Signs, as always, for sponsoring the podcast. Thank you again, Joyce, and I'll see you all next time.